Alright, in this lesson we're going to get into a little bit of geometry that is dealing with composite figures. Now when you hear composite figures, just think about figures that are involving two or more combined shapes. Now before we delve into composite figures, we have to discuss the difference between perimeter and area first. When I'm dealing with perimeter, I'm talking about the entire distance around an object, whereas when I'm dealing with area, I'm talking about the entire inside of that object. So a problem that would be perimeter could be asking for the fencing required to put a fence around a yard, whereas dealing with the same yard, the area problem would be asking for how much grass seed would be required to cover the entire yard itself. Now when finding perimeter, since it's the entire distance around an object, to find it all you have to do is add up all the sides. In this case we're not given the length of every side, but we know that opposite sides of rectangles are the same. So if my top is 10, this bottom length is going to be 10, the right side is 6, the left side is also going to be 6. When I add up 10 plus 6 plus 10 plus 6, that gives me 32. So the perimeter of this rectangle would be 32. Looking down here at this triangle, we know that there's 3 sides to a triangle. Right here we have 4 values, so ask yourself, which value is unnecessary to find the perimeter? And that would be this 5 right here. That is not included around the outside of the object. That's giving me the height. We don't need to know that to find the perimeter. So we just add up the 3 sides. 4 plus 4 plus 6 gives me 14. The perimeter of this triangle is 14. Now, when dealing with area, you have to remember certain formulas. So the formula for a rectangle is length times width. Length times width. Pretty straightforward. Now, when dealing with the area of a triangle, there's 2 ways to remember it. They both get you the same answer. You can say 1/2 times base times height, or base times height divided by 2. It's your choice. I promise you it gives you the same answer. Let's look at it. Again, the formula for the rectangle is length times width. So I'm giving my length and I'm giving my width. 10 times 6 is 60. The area of this rectangle is 60 square units. Now, again, we're given irrelevant information. We don't need these 4s to find the area because they're not the base or the height. The base is 6, the height is 5. So if I type in my calculator 1/2 times 6 times 5, I would get 15. Or if you prefer the other way, base times height divided by 2, 6 times 5 is 30 divided by 2 also gives you 15. Now, up here we have a composite figure. Going back, we know that composite figures are just 2 or more combined shapes. If I split this up this way, I have 2 rectangles. Or, if you want to split it vertically, you also have 2 rectangles. Now, when we deal with composite figures, we have to know that the 2 smaller vertical lines add up to the larger vertical side. So 7 plus 5 equals 12. Same goes for the horizontal lines. The 2 smaller lines or sides add up to the bigger side. So we have 4 plus 7 does in fact give you 11. And like we said earlier, to find the perimeter, it's the entire distance around an object. So to find the perimeter of this object, all you have to do is add up all the sides. When we add up all these sides, we do in fact get 46. So the perimeter of this composite figure would be 46. Now, to deal with the area, a little more tricky. You have to split it either way, and then find the area of each rectangle, and then add them together at the very end. So if I split this going this way, there are now 2 values that are relevant to this problem. Because I split it in half this way, this 12 gives me the entire length going this way, but I split that in half, so I don't need this 12 anymore. Also, this 7 is not long enough now. It only goes right there. We need the entire distance across, so I'm going to be using the 11 and the 7 and the 5 and the 4. Don't need the 7 or the 12 anymore. Now again, going back to the last slide, we know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. So here would be length times width. 5 times 4 would give me 20. And over here, 7 times 11 would be 77. Now if you remember from about a minute ago, to find the total surface area, the total area of this object, you just add both areas together. 4 times 5 is 20. 7 times 11, 77. 77 plus 20 does in fact give you 97. The area of this composite figure is 97. Now, there's another way to do this. So what's great about math, there's always multiple ways to find the answer. Instead of adding together, if you want to look at this as a big square with a chunk taken out of it, then you need to know subtraction. So where's the chunk that's missing? Would be this top right corner. Now, if we were to enclose this rectangle would be 11 by 12. We know that 11 by 12, the area would be 11 times 12, which would be 132. Now we got to think about it. It's not going to be 132 because it's missing this little square right here, this little rectangle up here in the right corner. So we would have to figure out the area of this missing piece. 7 times 5 is 35. So instead of adding it together, you take the whole piece and subtract the smaller piece. It'll look a little something like this. The big rectangle is 12 times 11, which is 132. Subtract the smaller piece, 5 times 7, which is 35, and you get the same answer. Again, 97. Now, we're not always going to be given the lengths of these composite figures. A lot of the times they're going to be missing lengths, but we have to remember our rules. The two smaller sides add up to the bigger side. So let's color coordinate this again. My two smaller green lines will add up to the larger green line. So we got 9 and 4. So 9 plus 4 gives me 13. My other missing length is this one right here. This side plus this side has to equal 14. Well, what plus 6 gives me 14? That would be 8. The two missing sides are 13 and 8. If it was asking for the perimeter and the area of this figure, you have to fill in the missing lengths first. So again, we have 13 and 8. And by now you know to find the perimeter, you just add up all the sides. If we were to add up all these sides, 13 plus 14 plus 9 plus 8 plus 4 plus 6 gives you 54. Now, going back to find the area, remember you have to split up into two shapes, find the area of each shape, and then add them together in the end. I'm going to go ahead and split it going this way. So I have my longer piece up here, a little smaller piece down here. Now, that makes two values now irrelevant. Because I split it off going this way, don't need this 14 anymore. And now this 4 is not long enough anymore. So I have 8 and 9, 6 and 3. Multiply those together. 6 times 13 gives me 78. And 8 times 9 gives me 72. I have my two areas of each rectangle, and then in the end, we just add them together. 6 times 13, 78. 8 times 9, 72. 78 plus 72 gives me 150. The area of this composite figure is 150. 150. Okay, now dealing with surface area. Again, we have a composite figure. Two different shapes. What are my two shapes? I have a rectangle and a triangle. You find the area of each shape and then add them both together. So, length times width first. Let's do the rectangle. It's probably easier. Length times width. 10 times 5 is 50. The area of this rectangle is just 50. Now, going back to basic shape facts. I'm not given the length of every side, but you got to plug them in. If this side is 5, then this side is also going to be 5, which now gives me the height of this triangle. So 1/2 times 6 times 5, or 6 times 5 divided by 2, again, is 15. 6 times 5 is 30, divided by 2 is 15. Now, almost done. All we have to do is add them together now. 50 plus 15, the entire area of this composite figure is 65 square units. Let's move on. Now, we have another one. A house-looking composite figure. The two shapes are a triangle and a square. I know it's a square because these little ticks tell me that all the sides are the same. So if this is 6, then this side is also going to be 6. The area of a square is just like the area of a rectangle. Length times width. So length times width, 6 times 6 gives me 36. Now, this is tricky because there's not a line going across and there won't always be, but you can go ahead and draw one if you want. And opposite sides are the same, so 6, 6. So the area would be 1/2 times 6 times 3, or 6 times 3 divided by 2, which would give me 9. Now when you add 9 and 36 together, at the very end, the area of this composite figure will be 45 square units. Now, we're also going to be dealing with net objects or net shapes. Whenever we hear about net, we're just thinking about a 3D object. So right here, I have a cube. Now a net shape is just a cube or a 3D object that is unfolded. So if we take this cube and unfold it, we get the shape that is on the board. Now, all these tick marks tell us that all these sides are the same. So going back to our formula for the area of a rectangle and square is going to be length times width. So right here I have 5 times 5. And 5 times 5 gives me 25. Which means that all the areas of all these sides will be 25. And to find the total surface area, you have to combine them all at the end. Now, how many shapes do you have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have to add 25 6 times, or just do 25 times 6, which again gives us 150 square units. Now, sometimes you'll have a shape that looks like this. And you have to think, how many total shapes are there? Because that tells you how many areas or how many numbers you have to add at the end. So this first one, let's fill in our missing lengths. If this side's 8 down here, opposite sides of a rectangle are the same. This one's going to be 8, this one will also be 8, and this will be 8. This side's 5, this will be 5, 5, and 5. So just looking at these values, I know that this rectangle and this rectangle will be the same, just like this triangle and this triangle will also be the same. Length times width, 5 times 8 gives me 40. Let's look at my middle rectangle. 8 times 4 gives me 32. The bottom one, again, will be 40. Now, I got 3 of the 5 shapes. Got to find the area of these triangles now. The base of the triangle is 4. The height is 3. So 3 times 4 divided by 2, or 1/2 times 3 times 4, gives me 6. And if they're both 6, add all these together at the very end, and that gives us 124 square units. Now, take this time to pause the video, take a look at the board, and practice. We'll review it when you return. Hopefully you paused the video and practice. Let's go over these real quick. Now, this says find the perimeter and the area of the figure below. Well, first I have to plug in the missing values. I know that the smaller sides add up to the larger sides. So if I'm missing this little piece right here, this plus this piece gives me 8. So 6 plus 2 equals 8. I'm also missing my larger side, so I'm just going to add up my smaller sides. 5 plus 2 gives me 7. Now I'm going to split this up into 2 shapes to find the area. For that, let's find the perimeter. Add up all my shapes together, or all my sides together. So 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8, add it all together, gives me 30. Now, to find the area of each rectangle first, and then add them together. I know I'm not going to need this 2, and I know I'm not going to need this 7. So length times width, 2 times 6 is 12. Length times width, 5 times 8 is 40. 40 plus 12, the total area of this composite figure is 52. Last one, find the surface area. How many total shapes do we have? It's going to be 3. We have 1 rectangle and 2 triangles. So I'm going to find the area of the rectangle first. Length times width, 12 times 4 gives me 48. Now, I know that both these triangles are congruent, so they're going to be the same. So 1/2 times 3 times 4, or 4 times 3 divided by 2, is going to be 6. So at the very end, I have 48 plus 6 plus 6 gives me a total surface area of 60. Good luck.